The smell of stale coffee and desperation clung to the diner like a second skin. It was 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, the lull between the lunch rush and the EA Raleigh dinner crowd, and the place was nearly empty. A single COK worked the grill in the back, his radio tuned low to a static-filled country station. 2 truckers nursed cold cups of coffee at the counter, their eyes glassy with road fatigue. The bell above the door chimed, and a small figure slipped inside. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Her hair was a wild tangle of dar curls, held back from her face by a faded pink headband. Her clothes were clean but worn, a hand-me-down jacket that was 2 sizes too big, jeans with patches at both knees, and scuffed sneakers with a hole in the left toe. She clutched a worn backpack to her chest like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to the EA Roth. The COK, a burly man named Hank, looked up from the grill with a frown. "Hey, kid, you lost. This ain't a playground." The girl's voice was small, but steady. "I'm not lost. I'm here to work," Hank snorted, wiping his hands on his greasy apron. "Work? You're 7. Go find your mama." "My mom's sick," the girl said, her chin lifting with a determination that seemed far too old for her face. "She works here Arpar. She has the morning shift, but she couldn't come today. She has a fever and she can't stop coughing, so I came to work in her place." Hank's frown deepened. He glanced around the empty diner, then back at the girl. "Kid, you can't work here. It's against the law. And even if it wasn't, what would you do? You can't reach the grill. You can't see a tray full of plates. And you don't know the menu." "I know the menu," she said, her voice unwavering. She set her backpack down on a nearby stool and unzipped it, pulling out a crumpled piece of paper. It was a handwritten list, the letters uneven but carefully formed. "I copied it from the bar. I've been practicing. I can take orders and I can bus tables. I can even make coffee, if you show me how." Hank stared at her, torn between irritation and something that looked dangerously close to admiration. "Your mom know you're here. She was sleeping when I left," the girl said, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. "But I left her a note. I told her I was going to the library." The lie hung in the air, flimsy and transparent. Hank opened his mouth to a rug, but the door chimed again, and a new customer walked in. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than the diner's monthly rent. His face was a mask of cold indifference, his jaw sharp, his eyes the color of steel. He moved with the casual authority of a man who owned every room he entered, who expected the world to make way for him. His presence sucked the air out of the room, replaced it with something electric and dangerous. He didn't look at Hank. He didn't look at the truckers. He looked at the girl. She didn't flinch. She met his gaze head on, her small hands balling into fists at her sides. "I'll take your order," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor she was clearly suppressing. "Please sit anywhere you like." The man raised an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement crossing his otherwise unreadable face. He walked to a booth by the window and slid in, his movements fluid and controlled. He picked up the laminated menu, scanning it with the disinterest of someone who wasn't really hungry. The girl grabbed a notepad and a pencil from behind the counter, her movements quick and purposeful. Hank tried to stop her, but she was already at the man's table, pencil poised. "What can I get you?" she asked, her voice projecting a confidence she didn't quite feel. The man set down the menu and studied her. His gaze was unnerving, the kind of look that peeled back layers, that saw things most people tried to hide. The girl held her ground, but her knuckles were white around the notepad. "You're young to be working," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Where's the usual waitress?" "My mom's sick," the girl said again, the words coming easier this time. "I'm filling in." "Does your mother know you're here?" The question was simple, but it carried weight. The girl's composure cracked, just a fraction. Her eyes darted to the side, then back to him. "She was sleeping. I left a note." "You left a note," he repeated, his tone unreadable. "And you walked here alone." "I'm not alone," the girl said, a flash of defiance in her eyes. "I have my backpack." The corner of his mouth twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. "And what's in your backpack?" "Supplies," she said. "A sandwich, a water bottle, and a flashlight. Just in case." "Just in case of what?" "Just in case," she said firmly. The man leaned back in his seat, his eyes never leaving her face. Something shifted in his expression, a softening around the edges that was almost imperceptible. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp $100 bill, laying it on the table between them. "I'll have a coffee," he said, black. "Keep the change." The girl stared at the bill, her mouth falling open. "That's too much. A coffee here costs $2.50. "I know," he said. "Consider it a tip." She hesitated, then reached for the bill. Her hand was trembling, just slightly. She had never held that much money in her life. Her fingers brushed against the smooth paper. And she felt a surge of something she couldn't quite name. Or FAR or both. Hank Appiah read at her side, his face pale. Sir, I'm really sorry about this. The kid's not supposed to be here. I'll get your coffee myself. Let her bring it, the man said, his voice brooking no argument. She's doing just fine. Hank opened his mouth to protest. But the look in the man's eyes stopped him cold. He retreated to the kitchen, muttering under his breath. The girl went to make the coffee, her hands still trembling. She poured the steaming liquid into a thick ceramic mug and carried it back to the table, careful not to spill a drop. She set it down in front of him, her eyes fixed on the cup. Thank you, she said, her voice really a whisper. Thank you, he replied. You're a brave girl. What's your name? Leo, she said. My name is Leo. He didn't react to the name, but something flickered in his eyes, recognition, curiosity. It was there and gone, too fast to read. He repeated. That's a strong name. She nodded, unsure of what to say. She hovered by the table, her hands clasped behind her back, clearly waiting for something. You can sit, he said, gesturing to the seat across from him. Take a break, she hesitated. She was supposed to be working. But the thought of sitting down, of resting her aching feet, was too tempting to resist. She slid into the booth, keeping her backpack close, and watched him take a sip of his coffee. It's good, he said. You made it right. A small, proud smile flickered across her face. My mom she says the secret is to not let the water boil too long. Your mom sounds smart. She is, Leo said, her voice softening. She works really hard. She works 2 jobs. She never complains, she just does it. And you help her, Kaylin said. That's why you're here. Leo nodded, her eyes dropping to the table. She was coughing so much last night, she couldn't sleep. I stayed up with her. I got her water and medicine. But this morning she was worse. She told me to stay home. She told me to be careful. But I couldn't just let her miss work. We need the money. The words tumbled out, raw and honest. Leo looked up, her eyes bright with unshattieras. I don't know what to do, she admitted. I just want to help. Kaylin was silent for a long moment. His face was still impassive. But there was something in his eyes now. Something that looked almost like pain. I know what that's like, he said quietly, wanting to help. Feeling like you're not enough. Leo sniffled, wiping her nose on her sleeve. Are you a dad? The question caught him off guard. He blinked, his mask slipping for just a second. He said, I'm not. You'd be a good one, she said, with the absolute certainty of a child. The words hit him like a punch to the chest. He looked away, staring out the rain-streaked window. The world outside was gray and cold, a city full of strangers who didn't see Ari. But in this diner, with this strange, brave little girl, he felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Leo, he said, turning back to her. How would you like to make a deal? Her eyes widened. What kind of deal? I need someone, he said slowly, to help me with something. It's a big job. It requires someone brave. Someone who isn't afraid of a little danger. Leo leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. What kind of danger? The kind that comes with secrets, he said, his voice dropping to a murmur. The kind that could get someone hurt. But I promise, if you help me, I'll take care of you and your mom. You'll never have to worry about money again. Leo's heart was pounding. Every instinct told her to say no, to run back home, to forget this strange, intense man and his strange, intense offer. But another part of her, the part that had seen her mom cry when she thought Leo was asleep, the part that had counted the coins in the jar for groceries, the part that knew what hunger felt like. That part wanted to say yes. What do you need me to do? She asked, her voice really audible. Kaylin reached across the table and took her hand. His grip was gum steady. I need you to be brave, he said. That's all, just be brave. The bell above the door chimed again, and a man stepped in. He was tall, thin, and dressed in a trench coat that was too big for him. His face was shadowed by a fedora, but Leo could see his eyes. They were predative, scanning the room like he was looking for something, or someone. Kaylin's grip on her hand tightened. His face, which had been soft just moments ago, hardened into a mask of cold fury. Leo, he said, his voice low and urgent, I need you to listen to me. Do you trust me? She looked into his eyes. She really knew this man. But in that moment, with danger walking toward them, she made a choice. Yes, she said. Good, he said. Now, when I tell you, I need you to run. Don't look back, just run. Go out the back door and don't stop until you get home. Promise me, he said, his voice fierce. Promise me you'll run. The man in the trench coat was getting closer. Hank had frozen by the grill, his eyes wide with fear. The truckers were watching, their hands hovering near their belts. Leo nodded, her heart racing. I promise. Kylan released her hand and stood, his frame towering over the booth. He faced the approaching man, his posture shifting into something predatory and dangerous. You're not welcome here, Kylan said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Lee. And I won't kill you where you stand. The man stopped, a cruel smile curling his lips. Kylan Thorne, the big man, the ghost who thought he could disappear. The family sent me to bring you back, or bring you down, it's your choice. The family, Kylan repeated, his voice dripping with contempt. They have no claim on me. They never did. The man's hand moved to his coat. Kylan was faster, in a single fluid motion. He grabbed a butter knife from the table and threw it. It embedded itself in the man's shoulder, and he crumpled, screaming. Kylan shouted. Leo didn't hesitate. She grabbed her backpack and ran for the back door, her feet slamming against the linoleum floor. She burst out into the alley, the cold rain hitting her face, and she ran. She ran past dumpsters and stray cats and overflowing trash cans. She didn't look back. She didn't stop until she reached her appartement door, her lungs burning, her legs itching. She fumbled with the key, her hand shaking, and let herself inside. Her mother was still sleeping, her face pale and drenched. Leo locked the door, sliding the deadbolt into place. She leaned against it, her heart pounding. She had just made a deal with a man who had enemies, and she had just promised to be brave. She looked out the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. Somewhere out there, Kylan Thorne was fighting for his life, and somewhere out there, the family he had run from was coming for him. Leo touched the pocket of her jacket. The $100 bill was still there. She pulled it out, staring at it in the dim light. It was worth more than she had ever held, but it had come at a price. She was in too deep, and she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that her life was never going to be the same. The apartment was small, cramped, and smelled of cheap lavender air freshener, and the lingering remnants of last night's chicken soup. Leo stood with her back pressed against the door, her small chest heaving, the $100 bill crumpled in her sweaty palm. Her mother, Ellie, was still asleep on the pull-out couch in the corner, her face flushed with fever, her breathing shallow and ragged. The sight of her, so fragile and broken, made Leo's heart clench with a fear she couldn't afford to feel. She shoved the bill into her pocket and crept across the room, her sneakers squeaking softly on the worn linoleum. She knelt beside the couch and pressed the back of her hand to her mother's forehead, still burning. The fever hadn't broken. The cough was worse, a deep, rattling sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her mother's chest. Leo bit her lip, fighting back tears. She was 7 years old. She wasn't supposed to be the one in Chie Raj. She was supposed to be at school, running multiplication tables and making friendship bracelets. Instead she was here, counting the coins in the jar and praying that her mother would wake up. She looked at the clock on the microwave. 3:47. The diner shift would be over soon. If she could just hold on, just keep her mother alive until she got better, everything would be fine. It had to be fine. But the image of Kylan Thorne's face, cold and dangerous, haunted her. The man in the trench coat, the butter knife embedded in his shoulder, the way Kylan had shouted for her to run. She had no idea who he really was, no idea what kind of trouble she had stumbled into. But she knew one thing: he had saved her. And now, she had made a promise to be brave. A soft knock on the door made her jump. She froze, her heart hammering. The knock came again, 3 quick taps. Then, Leo crept to the door and peered through the peephole. Her breath caught in her throat. It was Kylan. He stood in the hallway, his suit damp and disheveled, a dark stain spreading across his shoulder. His face was pale, his jaw tight, but his eyes were sharp and alert. He looked like a man who had just walked through a war zone. Leo unlocked the door, her hands trembling. You're bleeding, she whispered. Kylan stepped inside, his movements cerebral, controlled. He looked at Ellie on the couch, his expression flickering with something that might have been concern. She's sick, Leo said, her voice small. She has a fever. She won't wake up. Kylan knelt beside the couch, pressing 2 fingers to Ellie's neck. He felt for a pulse, his face grim. She's dehydrated. She needs a hospital. We can't afford a hospital, Leo said, the words spilling out in a desperate rush. We can barely afford rent, and the ambulance costs money. Everything costs money. Kylan looked at her, his steel gray eyes softening. Told you I'd take care of you, he said. I meant it. He pulled out his phone and made a call, his voice low and urgent. Leo couldn't hear the words, but she could see the authority in his posture, the way he commanded the situation. Within minutes, there was another knock at the door, and 2 men in dark suits entered. They moved with the efficiency of trained professionals, lifting Ellie onto a stretcher and carrying her down the stairs. Leo grabbed her backpack and followed, her heart pounding. She didn't know where they were going, but she knew one thing. She wasn't going to leave her mother alone. The hospital was private, clean, and quiet. No fluorescent lights, no screaming children, no overcrowded waiting rooms. The staff moved in hushed whispers, their faces professional but kind. Kaylin had arranged everything. A private room, a team of specialists, and a steady stream of tests and treatments. Leo sat in a chair beside her mother's bed, holding her hand, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest. The fever was coming down, the cough had eased. The doctors said she would recover, but she needed rest, she needed time. Kaylin stood by the window, his back to her, his hands clasped behind him. He had changed into a clean shirt, but the dark stain on his shoulder was still visible. He hadn't left her side for a single moment. Why are you doing this? Leo asked, her voice cutting through the silence. Why do you say Ra? Kaylin turned to look at her, his face unreadable. Because I was you once, he said. I was a kid who had to grow up too fast. I had to fight for everything I had. And I made a lot of bad choices along the way. What kind of bad choices? Leo asked, her eyes wide. He was silent for a long moment, his gaze drifting to the window. The kind that get people killed, he said. The kind that destroy families. The kind that make you into something you don't recognize. Leo's fingers tightened around her mother's hand. Is that what you are? She asked. Something you don't recognize. He met her gaze, and for the first time, she saw something raw and vulnerable in his eyes. I'm trying to be better, he said. That's why I'm here. That's why I need your help. I don't understand, Leo said. What could I possibly do that you couldn't do yourself? Kaylin walked over to her and knelt in front of her chair, bringing his face level with hers. His voice dropped to a whisper. The family I ran from, he said. They're looking for something that belongs to me. But they don't know where it is, and I need to keep it safe. What is it? A key, he said. It unlocks a safe. Inside that safe is everything I need to destroy the people who've been hunting me. But I can't keep the key with me. It's too dangerous. If they find it, they win. Leo stared, the weight of his words pressing down on her. You want me to keep it, she said. You want me to hide it. He nodded slowly. You're the only person I can trust, he said. You're brave, you're smart. And they'll never suspect a child. It was insane, it was reckless. It was the kind of dangerous secret that could get her killed. But looking into Kaylin's eyes, seeing the desperation and the hope and the fear, Leo felt something shift inside her. She wasn't a child anymore. She hadn't been for a long time. Okay, she said, I'll do it. Kaylin reached into his pocket and pulled out a small brass key, no bigger than her thumb. It was old, tarnished, and utterly unremarkable. He pressed it into her palm, folding her fingers around it. Hide it somewhere no one will ever think to look, he said. And don't tell anyone, not even your mom. It's safer if she doesn't know. Leo, slipping the key into the secret pocket of her backpack. She felt its weight against her hip, a constant reminder of the promise she had made. A week passed. Ellie's recovery was slow but steady. She was home now, still weak, but her fever was gone and her cough was improving. She looked at Leo with a mixture of gratitude and guilt, her eyes filled with unshed tears. I'm so sorry baby, she said one evening, brushing a strand of hair from Leo's face. I should have been there for you. I should have been stronger. You are strong mom, Leo said, leaning into her touch. You're the strongest person I know. But even as she said it, the weight of the key in her backpack pressed against her side. She had secrets now. Secrets that could destroy them both. Kaylin had called her twice, checking in, making sure she was safe. He told her he was still dealing with the family, still fighting to stay one step ahead. He promised her that soon it would be over, but Leo knew better. The danger was far from over. One night, when Ellie was asleep, Leo pulled the key from her backpack and examined it under the light of her nightstand lamp. It was so small, but inside it held the power to change everything. Her mind drifted back to the diner, to the man in the trench coat, to the fear in Kaylin's eyes. She thought about the family he had run from, the invisible enemy that was always hunting him. And she realized something that made her blood run cold. They weren't just hunting Kaylin. They were hunting anyone who had ever helped him, and now, that included her. Leo slid the key back into its hiding place and lay down, staring at the ceiling. She had promised to be brave. She had promised to protect her mom. She had promised to keep the key safe. But the night was dark, and the shadows were closing in. And somewhere out there, in the silent city, she knew that someone was coming for her. 3 weeks. 3 weeks since the key had been pressed into her palm. 3 weeks since she had become the keeper of a secret that could end lives. Leo had counted every single day, marking them on the calendar with a red pen. A silent ritual that grounded her in a world that had suddenly become terrifyingly unstable. Ellie was back at work, though the doctors had warned her to take it slow. She moved through the appointment with a ghost-like fragility, her cough still lingering, her eyes shadowed by exhaustion she tried to hide. She didn't know about the key. She didn't know about Kaylin. Leo had kept her promise, buried the secret so deep that even she sometimes forgot it existed. But the forgetting never lasted. Every time a car slowed outside their building, every time a stranger lingered too long on the street corner, he would seize. She would press her hand to the hidden pocket of her backpack, feeling the cold metal of the key, and remind herself to breathe. Kaylin had called twice more. His voice was calm, measured, but she could hear the tension beneath it. "I'm close," he had said during the last call. "I'm dismantling their network piece by piece. But I need more time. Stay safe, stay hidden, don't trust anyone." She hadn't told him about the feeling of being watched. The prickle of eyes on her back when she walked to school. The shadow that seemed to move just at the edge of her vision. She didn't want to worry him. She didn't want to seem weak. But the FAR was a constant companion. A cold weight in her chest that never quite went away. The day it all changed rotted like any other. Thursday morning, gray sky, the smell of rain on the asphalt. Leah walked to school, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her head down against the wind. She was halfway there when she saw the car. It was black, expensive. It sat at the corner of her street, engine, windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. Leo froze, her heart hammering. She told herself it was nothing, a business, a parent waiting to pick up their kid. She told herself to keep walking, to not look back, to not draw attention. But then the passenger window rolled down, and a woman's face appeared. She was beautiful in the way that ice was beautiful. Cold and utterly unforgiving. Her hair was a sleek sheet of honey blonde, her lips painted a perfect, bloodless red. She wore a pearl necklace that gleamed against the dark fabric of her dress, and her eyes, a pale, piercing blue, were fixed on Leo with an intensity that made the little girl's blood run cold. The woman called, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. Darling, I've been looking for you. Leo's feet wouldn't move. They were rooted to the pavement, her body frozen with primal fear. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she couldn't. She was a rabbit caught in the headlights of an oncoming truck. The woman stepped out of the car, her heels clicking sharply against the asphalt. She was tall, elegant, and utterly controlled. She approached Leo slowly, her smile never wavering. "You don't know me," the woman said, her tone conversational. "But I know you. I know your mother too, Elliot Harper. Or should I say Vance?" The name hit Leo like a physical blow. Vance, she had never heard that name before. But the way the woman said it, with such cold contempt, made her stomach churn. "I don't know what you're talking about." Leo managed, her voice trembling. "My mom's name is Ellie." The woman laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Sweet, your mother has been lying to you. She's been lying to everyone. She stole something from my family. And I've come to get it back." Leo's hand instinctively moved to her backpack, the key pressing against her hip. The woman's eyes followed the movement, and her smile widened. She said, "So you do know. Good. That makes things so much simpler." "I don't have anything," Leo said, her voice shaking. "I don't know what you want." The woman took another step closer, her heels clicking like gunshots. "I want the key, little girl. The key your mother took from my husband. The key that belongs to my family. Give it to me. And I'll let you and your pathetic mother live." Husband, the word echoed in Leo's mind. This woman was married to the man in the trench coat. Or was she married to someone else entirely? Someone even more dangerous. Leo's mind raced, her heart pounding. She didn't know who this woman was. She didn't know what the key really did. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. If she gave it up, she would never see her mother again. This woman would kill them both. "I don't have it," Leo said, forcing steel into her voice. "I don't know what you're talking about." The woman's smile vanished, replaced by a cold of fury. "You're a terrible liar, little girl," she said, "but I admire your courage. It's a shame you'll have to die for it." She lunged for, her hand reaching for Leo's backpack. Leo reacted on pure instinct. Ducking to the side and bolting down the street, she ran as fast as her legs could see her, her sneakers slapping against the wet pavement, her lungs burning with the effort. "Stop her," the woman shouted. There was the sound of a car door slamming, footsteps pounding behind her. Leo didn't look back, she just ran. She turned a corner, then another, weaving through alleys and side streets, Her city was her playground, and she knew every shortcut, every hidings. She ducked behind a dumpster, pressing herself against the grimy metal, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The footsteps grew louder, then faded. She waited, her heart pounding, her entire body trembling. Minutes passed, the footsteps didn't return. Slowly, Leo crept out from behind the dumpster. Her hands were shaking, her legs felt like jelly, but she was alive. She pulled the key from her backpack, staring at it in the dim light. It was just a piece of brass, tarnished and old, but it had almost gotten her killed. She shoved it back into her pocket and started walking. She couldn't go home. They knew where she lived. She couldn't go to school. They would find her there too. She was alone, hunted and terrified. And then she remembered Kalen. He had given her a number, a lifeline she had never thought she would use. She pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket and read at the digits. It was a risk, but what other choice did she have? She found a payphone on the corner of a quiet street, fed it the last of her coins, and dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice, low and familiar, answered. "Hello, it's Leo," she said, her voice shaking. "They found me. They know about the key. I don't know what to do." The line was silent for a moment. Then, Kalen's voice came through, sharp and urgent. "Where are you? Tell me exactly where you are." She described the intersection, the corner store, the graffiti on the wall. He listened, then said, "Stay there. Don't move. I'm coming." The line went dead. Leo leaned against the phone booth, her knees weak. She had never been so scared in her entire life. But she had done what she promised. She had been brave. 20 minutes later, a sleek black car pulled up to the corner. The door opened and Kalen stepped out. He was wearing a deer leather jacket, his face hard with contained fury. He strode over to her, his eyes scanning the street for threats. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice gentle despite the tension in his jaw. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "They knew about my mom. They called her Elra Vance." "Who is that? What did she do?" Kalen knelt in front of her, taking her small hands in his. His grip was arm. "Your mother has a past, Leo, a past she ran away from. And the people she ran away from, they're the same people who are after me." "Are they the family?" Leo asked, her voice trembling. "The family you ran from?" Kalen nodded slowly. "And they'll stop at nothing to get what they want." He pulled her into a brief, fierce embrace. "But I promised you I'd keep you safe, and I meant it. You're coming with me, right now. We're going to a place where they can't find you." Leo pulled back, her eyes wide. "But my mom, she's already there," Kalen said. "I had her moved this morning. I knew they'd come for you. I just didn't know it would be so soon." He opened the car door, and Leo climbed inside. The leather seats were arm, the interior smelling of expensive cologne and something else, something clean and safe. She sank into the seat, her body finally starting to relax. Kalen slid in beside her and gave the driver a curt nod. The car, leaving the rain, slicked street behind. "Where are we going?" Leo asked. Kalen looked at her, his eyes unreadable. "To a place I should have taken you from the start," he said. "My home." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. It showed a sprawling estate, surrounded by tall iron gates and thick. It was the kind of place that belonged in a fairy tale, a fortress of stone and mystery. "This is where I grew up," he said, his voice low. "This is where I learned to hate. And this is where I'll teach you to fight back." Leo stared at the photograph, her mind reeling. She had known Kalen was powerful. She had known he was dangerous. But looking at the cold, imposing fortress in the photograph, she realized she had only scratched the surface. The Svedal, ring her toe ard an uncertain future. Behind, the city she had known was disappearing. Ahead of her, a new world was waiting, one of secrets, danger, and a legacy she had never asked for. She pressed her hand to her pocket, feeling the weight of the key. She had survived the first attack, but she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that the duel had only just begun. And somewhere in the shadows, the woman in the pearl necklace was watching, waiting, planning her next move. Leo looked out the window at the rain, slicked road and steeled herself for what was to come. She had a secret to keep, a mother to protect, and a promise to fulfill. She would not break. She would not bend. She would fight for everything she loved, even if it cost her everything. The estate rose from the mist like a creature from a remembered nightmare. Leo pressed her face to the car window, her breath fogging the glass as she stared at the iron gates that loomed before them. They were immense, black, and intricately wrought with twisting vines and thorns that looked sharp enough to draw blood. Beyond them, a long gravel drive wound through a forest of ancient oaks, their branches skeletal and beery against the gray winter sky. At the end of the drive sat the house, It wasn't a house, it was a fortress. Stone and slate, turrets and gables, windows like DRK unblinking eyes. It was the kind of place that belonged in Gothic novels. The kind of place where secrets were buried in walls and ghosts walked the halls at midnight. Leo swallowed, her small hand pressing against the hidden pocket of her jacket. The key was still there, a cold, constant weight against her ribs. She had survived the woman in the pearl necklace. She had survived the chase through the rain, slicked streets. But looking at the fortress in front of her, she felt a fresh wave of fear wash over her. This was Kylan's home, the place where he had run to hate, and now it was her sanctuary. Kylan's voice cut through her thoughts. It's not as scary as it looks, he said, a hint of deep humor in his tone. The ghosts here are mostly friendly. Leo turned to look at him. He was watching her, his steel gray eyes unreadable. There was something in his expression. Something that looked almost like vulnerability. I'm not scared, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. He smiled faintly. The car rolled to a stop in front of the main entrance. The doors were oak, thick and ancient, studded with iron bolts that gleamed dully in the gray light. A butler, tall and gaunt with silver hair and a face like carved stone, opened the door and stepped out. He bowed slightly, his eyes flickering to Leo with a flicker of curiosity. Mr. Thorne, he said, his voice a low, respectful rumble. The guest qui raters prepared, and guest has been settled in the east wing. Kylan nodded, stepping out of the car. He extended a hand to Leo, and she took it, her small fingers trembling slightly against his. Thank you, Jennings, Kylan said. She'll be staying with us for a while. She's to be treated as family. Jennings's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. Of course, sir. Welcome, young miss. Leo nodded, not trusting her voice. She followed Kylan into the house, her footsteps echoing on the marble floor. The interior was vast and cold, filled with dark wood antique furniture, and paintings of stern-faced ancestors who seemed to judge her with every step. It was beautiful in a grim, imposing way, but it didn't feel like a home. Kylan led her through a maze of hallways, up a sweeping staircase, and into a room that was nigh arm and inviting. There was a four-poster bed with a fireplace crackling with a cheerful fire, and a window seat overlooking the Jardins. The contrast with the rest of the house was stark, almost jarring. This is your room, Kylan said. If you need anything, just pull the cord by the bed. Jennings will come. Leo looked around, her eyes wide. It's beautiful, she said softly. Kylan's expression softened. I wanted you to feel safe, he said. I know this place is overwhelming, but you're protected here. No one can hurt you. She turned to face him, her eyes searching his. Who was that woman, the one in the car? Kylan's jaw tightened. Her name is Vivienne Sterling. She's the matriarch of the Sterling family, the family I told you about. They've been hunting me for years. But why? What did you do? Kylan was silent for a long moment. He walked to the window, his back to her, his hands clasped behind him. When he spoke, his voice was low, heavy with old pain. I was born into their world, he said. My father was a Sterling. My mother was a complication. She was a woman they considered beneath them. When she died, I was raised by them. As a weapon, they trained me, molded me, used me, and when I finally escaped, I took something with me. Something they want back. Leo said. He turned to look at her, his eyes glittering. Yes, the key. Leo pulled the key from her pocket, holding it up in the firelight. It gleamed dully. Ordinary unremarkable. What does it open? Safe, Kylan said. In a bank. Inside that safe is everything I need to destroy the Sterlings. Financial records, testimony, evidence of their crimes, everything. If they get the key, they'll destroy it all. And I'll have nothing. They'll win. Leo stared at the key, its weight suddenly immense. Why did you give it to me? She asked. Why not keep it yourself? Kylan walked over to her, kneeling so that his eyes were level with hers. Because they watch me, Leo. Every move I make, every step I take. They don't watch you. You're invisible to them. You're my only hope. The words hung in the air, heavy and solemn. Leo felt a surge of something, a strange, fierce pride. She was 7 years old. She was small and scared and utterly alone, but she was also brave. She had proven that. I'll keep it safe, she said. I promise. Kylan smiled, and for a moment, the cold, dangerous mask he wore slipped away. He looked almost young, almost hopeful. I know you will, he said. The days that followed were a blur of new routines. Leo woke, ate breakfast in a massive dining room that felt like a cathedral, and spent her days exploring the estate. It was a labyrinth of hidden passages, forgotten rooms and dusty libraries. She discovered a greenhouse filled with exotic flowers, a music room with a grand piano that no one played, and a tower with a view that stretched for miles across the misty countryside. and she discovered secrets. One afternoon, she found herself in a corridor she had never seen before, the walls lined with portraits of stern-faced strangers. At the end of the corridor, there was a door. It was small, almost hidden, and it was locked. Leo's hand went to her pocket to the key, but she didn't pull it out. She just stood there, staring at the door, her heart pounding. She heard footsteps behind her. She spun around, her breath catching. It was Kalen. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice cautious. Leo pointed at the door. "What's in there?" Kalen's face went still. He walked past her, his hand resting on the doorframe. "It's nothing," he said, "just an old room." But Leo saw the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes flickered with something that looked almost like fear. She knew he was lying. "Don't go there," he said, his voice low. She nodded slowly, but as he led her back to the main PA rod of the house, she couldn't shake the feeling that the door held secrets. Secrets that could change everything. That night she lay in bed, the fire crackling softly in the hay loft. She couldn't sleep. The key was under her pillow, its weight a constant reminder of the promise she had made. She thought about Vivienne Sterling, the woman with the PAL necklace. She thought about the chase through the rain, the terror in her mother's eyes. She thought about the locked door, and the secrets it held. She had to know. She slipped out of bed, her feet silent on the cold floor. She crept through the dark hallways, her heart pounding, until she reached the locked door. She pulled the key from her pocket and slid it into the lock. It clicked. She turned the key, and the door swung open. The room was small, dusty, and filled with old furniture covered in white sheets. But it wasn't the furniture that caught her attention, it was the wall. Covering the wall were photographs. Photographs of a woman with dark hair and a sad smile. Photographs of a little boy with steel gray eyes. Photographs of Kalen years ago, before he had become the cold, guarded man she knew. And in the center of the wall, framed in gold, was a photograph of Vivienne Sterling. Leo's blood, the woman who had chased her, who had threatened her mother, was in Kalen's house, in photographs, in his past. And then she saw it, a letter, yellowed and old, pinned to the wall beside the photograph. She stepped closer, her eyes scanning the words. I know you think I abandoned you. I know you think I chose them over you. I love you. I've always loved you. I'm trapped, and I need you to save me, please. Don't give up on me. V. Leo Steer read at the letter, her mind reeling. V. The woman who had chased her was Kylan's mother. And she was still alive. The door creaked behind her. Leo spun around, her heart in her throat. Kalen stood in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes burning with a mixture of rage and pain. You weren't supposed to see this, he said, his voice really a whisper. Leo said, backing away. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean. He held up a hand, cutting her off. His voice, when he spoke, was hollow. She's the reason I ran, the reason I hid. And she's the reason I'm still fighting. Leo's hand went to her pocket, to the key. The weight of it felt different now. Heavier, more dangerous. Will you ever stop fighting? She asked softly. Kylan looked at her, and there was something broken in his eyes. Something that made her heart ache. No, he said, not until I find her. Not until I know the truth. The silence stretched between them, heavy and raw. Leo looked at the photographs, at the letter, at the ghost of a woman who had haunted them both, and she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that their story was far from over. The door behind her began to creak again, but this time it wasn't Callan, it was the butler, Jennings, his face pale and urgent. Mr. Thorne, he said, his voice tight, we have a problem. They found us. They're at the gates. The estate was a fortress, but fortresses could fall. Leo had read enough fairy tales to know that walls could be breached, gates could be broken, and even the strongest castles could be reduced to rubble. She stood in the rockin' corridor, her heart hammering against her ribs, as Kalen moved past her with the fluid grace of a predator. His face was a mask of cold fury, but his hands, she noticed, were trembling. How many? He asked Jennings, his voice low and sure. 5 cars at the main gate, Jennings reported, his ancient face pale but composed. At least a dozen men. There are med. Sir Callan nodded, his jaw tight. Secure the east wing. Haper to the safe room. No, Leo said, her voice cutting through the tension. Both men turned to look at her, surprise flickering across their faces. I'm not hiding, I'm not running. I'm staying with you. Kalen's eyes narrowed. This isn't a game. These people will kill you without a second thought. I know, she said, her voice steady, but you told me to be brave. You gave me the key because you trusted me. Trust me now. The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Callan stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then slowly, a grim smile touched his lips. You're more like your mother than you know. He said. Alright, stay close, don't do anything reckless. She nodded, falling into step beside him as they descended the grand staircase. The main hall was dim, lit only by the flickering glow of the fire. Through the tall windows, she could see the headlights of the cars at the gate, bright and unyielding against the darkness. Kalen stopped at the base of the stairs, his eyes fixed on the doors. They'll try to negotiate first, he said, almost to himself. They always do. They want the key. And they think they can talk me into giving it up. Can they? Leo asked. He looked down at her, his eyes glittering. No. But they don't know that. The doors burst open, and Vivienne Sterling swept in like a storm. She was still wearing the pierrots, still immaculate in her tailored dress and perfect makeup. But there was a wildness in her eyes now, a desperation that she couldn't quite hide. Behind her, a dozen men in dark suits fanned out across the hall, their hands hovering near their weapons. Vivienne said, her voice dripping with false wrath. It's been so long. Not long enough, he replied, his voice cold as winter steel. Vivienne's smile faltered, just slightly. You've been a very difficult man to find, but I have to admit, this little hideaway of yours is charming. Very dramatic. What do you want, Vivienne? She laughed, the sound brittle and sharp. You know what I want, darling, the key. Give it to me, and we'll leave. No one has to get hurt. Kalen stepped forward, his presence commanding the room. Even if I had it, I would never give it to you. You and your family have taken everything from me. My freedom. My mother. Something flickered in Vivienne's eyes at the mention of his mother. Pain, guilt, it was there and gone, too fast to read. Your mother, she repeated, her voice suddenly cold. You still don't understand, do you? Your mother was a weakness, a liability. She was the reason everything fell apart. Don't, Kalen said, his voice dangerously quiet. Don't you dare speak about her. She was my sister, Vivienne said, her voice rising, my own sister, and she betrayed me. She chose love over family. She chose your pathetic father over me, and when she died, I inherited her mess. The words hit Kylan like a physical blow. He staggered back, his face drained of color. She was your sister. Vivienne's smile was cruel. You really didn't know, did you? All those years you spent hating her, thinking she abandoned you. She was the one who ruined everything. She stole from us, betrayed us. And then she had the audacity to die and leave you behind. I've been cleaning up her mess ever since. Leo watched the exchange, her mind racing. The letter in the hidden room, the photograph, the truth was unfolding like a dark flower. Each petal revealing something more terrible than the last. But Vivienne wasn't finished. She turned her gaze to Leo, her eyes narrowing. And this little urchin, the daughter of the runaway wife, the one who's been hiding you, she has the key, doesn't she? I can see it in her eyes. Kalen moved in front of Leo, shielding her with his body. You'll never touch her. Vivienne laughed, the sound echoing through the hall. I don't need to touch her, Kalen. I just need what she's saying. So hand it over. Or I'll burn this house to the ground with all of you in it. The threat hung in the air, heavy and real. Leo felt the weight of the key in her pocket, pressing against her hip like a burning coal. She had a choice to make, give up the key and let Vivienne win, or keep it and risk everything. She thought about her mother, unconscious in the East Wing. She thought about Kalen, a man who had been shaped by cruelty and loss. She thought about the woman in the photograph, Vivienne's sister, Kalen's mother, the one who had loved him enough to fight, even when she had lost. And she made a choice. She stepped out from behind Kalen, her small frame suddenly steady. The key was in her hand now, gleaming in the firelight. Vivienne's eyes locked onto it, hunger blazing in her gaze. Leo. No, Kylan said, his voice share, but Leo ignored him. She looked at Vivienne, her voice clear and unwavering. You want this so badly. You've been chasing it for years. Tell me. Tell me what's really inside that safe. Vivienne's smile faltered. That's none of your concern, little girl. It is my concern, Leo said. Because I'm the one who has to decide what to do with it. So, or I'll drop it into the fire right now. She moved toward the hearth, the key held out over the flames. Vivienne's face went pale, her composure cracking. She cried. I'll tell you. Leo stopped, her heart pounding. The safe contains evidence, Vivienne said, her voice strained. Evidence of our families, business dealings, but that's not all. It also contains a letter from my sister. In it, she confesses to everything, every crime, every betrayal. She wrote it before she died, and she sent it to Kalen, but he never read it. Kalen's face was a mask of shock. What are you talking about? Vivienne's eyes were wild, desperate. She loved him more than anything. She wrote that letter to protect him, to explain why she had to leave, but the family intercepted it. They've been hiding it for years. If Kalen reads it, he'll know the truth. He'll know that she didn't abandon him, that she was forced to. The words hung in the air, heavy and unbelievable. Leo stared at Vivienne, her mind racing. The letter, the hidden room, the photograph, it all connected. Give me the key, Vivienne said, her voice pleading now. Let me destroy the letter. Let me end this. Please. Leo looked at Kylan. His eyes were filled with tears. His composure finally shattered. I need to know, he said, his voice relay a whisper. I need to know the truth. Leo made her decision. She turned to Vivienne, her eyes cold. You don't get to destroy the truth, she said. You don't get to run from it anymore. She stepped back, the key still in her hand. Take it. Read the letter. Find the truth. Vivienne screamed, lunging for, but Kylan was faster. He grabbed the key from Leo's hand and strode toward the door. The men in the hall moved to stop him. But a single look from Kylan froze them in their tracks. This is between me and her, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Anyone who tries to interfere will regret it. He walked out, leaving the hall in stunned silence. Vivienne crumpled to the floor, her perfect composure finally shattered. Leo watched, feeling a strange mixture of pity and disgust. Please, Vivienne whispered. Please don't let him read it. But Leo didn't answer. She just walked away, leaving Vivienne on the cold marble floor. The library, lit only by a single lamp. Kylan sat at the desk, the letter spread out before him. Leo stood in the doorway, watching him read. His face was a study in emotion, grief, rage, sorrow, a profound and aching relief. When he finished, he looked up, his eyes wet with tears. She didn't abandon me, he said, his voice cracking. She fought for me. She gave everything for me, and they took her away. Leo walked over to him, placing a small hand on his arm. You have the truth now, she said. That's all that matters. He looked at her, a strange, gentle smile crossing his face. You saved me, Leo. Just like I promised I would save you. He pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. In the quiet of the library, surrounded by the ghosts of the past, they found a fragile peace. The estate was quiet now. The storm finally passed. Vivienne and her men had retreated, their secrets exposed, their power broken. Kylan had made arrangements for her disappearance, a final act of mercy for a woman who had been consumed by her own cruelty. Leo sat on the window seat in her room, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. The key was gone, destroyed in the fire along with the evidence that had caused so much pain. But the letter remained, tucked safely in Kylan's keeping, a reminder of the truth, a reminder of the love that had endured even in the darkest of times. Her mother was awake now, sitting in a chair beside the fire. She was still weak, but her eyes were clear, her smile genuine. Thank you, Ellie said, her voice soft, for everything. Leo smiled, her heart full. We're gonna be okay, Mom, I promise. Downstairs, Kylan stood in the main hall, looking at the portrait of his mother. He touched the frame gently, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long to find you, but I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere. The door opened, and Leo walked in. She looked at him, at the portrait, and she understood. Are you okay? She asked. He turned to her, his eyes still wet but his smile genuine. I am now, he said. She grinned, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like a child again, free. Outside, the sun rose over the estate, casting long shadows across the grounds. The gates stood open, welcoming the new day, and in the heart of the fortress, a family was being born.